I'm Father Pullman.
And I'm Father Schumacher. And we
are the Associates. And we are back for another episode. This time I'm going to let Father Schumacher speak. So, Reverend Father, what would happen if a priest became ill or died in the middle of Mass, especially an important part of the Mass like the consecration?
You might be surprised, or you might not be, surprised to know that the Church has actually thought about this. And some of you have actually experienced this. There are stories out there about, a priest had a heart attack during Mass, or something went wrong, right, during Mass. What happens? What do you do when something goes wrong? Well, after 2,000 years of doing this thing, the Church actually has a whole document. It's not this long. This contains lots of other things, but it's about 3 pages in this little book. A document called De Defectibus. Basically, if I was translating that loosely from the Latin, I'd say, what do you do when things go wrong? And it has everything in here, right? What if you don't have the right kind of wine? What if you don't have the right kind of bread? What if you don't have wine at all? What if the wine that you had went bad? What if the minister turns out to, whatever, all these different things. And so there's a whole section on what happens, defects occurring in the celebration of the rite itself. Here it is. I'll just quote, let the Church speak. If, before the consecration, the priest becomes seriously ill, or faints, or dies, the Mass is discontinued. If this happens after the consecration of the body only, and before the consecration of the blood, or after both have been consecrated, the Mass is to be completed by another priest from the place where the first priest stopped. And, in case of necessity, even by a priest who is not fasting. Remember, of course, that it is part of church law that we fast in order to receive the Eucharist, and the priest has to receive the Eucharist in the Mass. So if it turns out that your priest is incapacitated after he has gotten to the consecration, and you go get another priest from the rectory after you've hopefully taken care of this first priest as best you can, and he was like in the middle of eating breakfast while you went over and got him, he's allowed to step in and finish that Mass, right? If the first priest has not died, but has become ill and is still able to receive communion, so imagine a priest who fainted but he fainted and now he's sitting in the pew or over on a chair on the side, right? And there is no other consecrated host at hand, the priest who's completing the Mass should divide the host, give one part to the sick priest, and consume the other part himself. So it shows that this priest who was celebrating Mass and had to stop partway through is allowed to kind of participate in the sacrificial action of the Mass, which, as you know, is the priest actually receiving the body and blood of Christ. That's the only thing that's necessary for the sacrifice of the Mass to be completed. Now, the sacrament of the Holy Eucharist is then extended appropriately to the faithful who are present, but that's actually not necessary for the sacrifice of the Mass, the part of offering to God. If the priest has died after half saying the formula for the consecration of the body, then there is no consecration and no need for another priest to complete the Mass. If, on the other hand, the priest has died after half saying the consecration of the blood, then another priest is to complete the Mass, repeating the whole formula over the same chalice with the words, in a similar way, after supper was ended, or he may say the whole formula over another chalice which has been prepared and consume the first priest's host and the blood consecrated by himself, and then the chalice which was left half consecrated. That's really interesting because the Church is getting down to the infinitesimal detail of what if the priest was in the middle of consecrating the chalice? What do we do then? And there's an answer to it. But this, I think, gets to a bigger question of what do you do when things generally go wrong with the Mass? What kinds of things could go wrong, and what do you do, Father?
Well, I think this is one of the reasons that it's good to have the principles which we eventually get from these minutiae. So if a child sees a dog, they know it's a dog. If they see another kind of dog, they think it's a dog. The first cat they see, they might think is a dog until someone tells them it's a cat. But after enough particulars, you begin to get the idea of what is what. And so here we can see that there seems to be 2 things that need to be respected. If the priest has not said the consecration, it's not ideal for another priest to unnecessarily come halfway in to do just the consecration and the rest of the Mass, because all the rest of it's a preparation.
Right.
But then, so there's a respect of each priest that's offering the Mass. But then also you also see that within the consecration, the priest will forego that to respect the rite. And so you see those two things in tandem and how that's kind of played out in the minutiae there. So I find it to be such a great comfort to know that we're building on the backs of those who have gone before us. And so they've had centuries upon centuries to work this out, to think about it, and to experience clearly every possible problem that could have happened.
Yeah, other things that are in this document on what goes wrong during Mass and what do you do about it are things like what happens if a spider gets into the chalice, what happens if a bird or a dog takes the host after it's been consecrated. Well, it depends whether you can get it back or not. I mean, just the wildest kind of things. What if the priest consecrates the chalice and then when he consumes it realized that it had gone bad? And it's not wine anymore, it's vinegar, right? Well, then you have to redo it because that wasn't wine, so it can't be the Mass, right? Just all these details. So they're very careful about the things that touch on the sacrament itself. Like, we don't mess around with sacraments. If we're not sure that a sacrament happened with, ordinary reasonable certainty, then we go back and do it right. However, with other things, like, for example, liturgy is messy just because people are messy. Things go wrong, and it's okay. One that happened to me recently was I had accidentally left the lectionary open to the wrong page. The lector got up there and started reading the wrong reading. Not her fault, but, we got to fix it, right? Because we want the readings to be the right ones. So I stand up and go over. Is that part of the rite? No, but just deal with it, right? Another one that happens with some frequency is that we forget the tabernacle key, or the jar of water that we use for washing the priest's hands was left empty, or whatever, right? Okay, send a server back to the sacristy. Go get what is needed, right? We'll wait a moment. So liturgy, and I think this is a good lesson for us, the faithful at Mass, that despite our best efforts, things go wrong, and that's okay. God is patient with us. He's not there saying, oh, well, you sang the wrong note during the preface, so all of this doesn't count. I'm unpleased with it, right? No, he's pleased with our honest efforts to serve him. And that's not just in the liturgy, it's in our moral lives as well. We need to really try hard, but we can be free and allow ourselves to serve God with that freedom that comes from the Spirit.
Click the logo right there to subscribe.
Thanks for watching. New episodes come out every Wednesday.